What's going on, everybody? Julian here from Vote for Holt.
And Jameson is tagging along too as the co-host. He does that sometimes. Today we are going over a new Nancy Drew top 10 that was lightly inspired by a post that Julian saw.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that because we've been talking about this idea for I feel like months now. But
Yeah.
We have to be honest, this came to fruition because we saw a Reddit post on the r/Nancy Drew subreddit. If you aren't on it, I highly encourage you to join it.
If you don't, then that's okay. I don't have a Reddit.
Yeah, Jamie's not on it, but I will say the post was made by u/Aurora's Crown, and they were talking about quote-unquote villains in the Nancy Drew games that weren't actually the culprits for each game.
The post itself reads, which characters do you think were the real villains of their games, even if they aren't the culprit?
Jamie and I have thought about this exact top 10 for a while, and what was holding me back previously was I didn't think that we could get 10 actual people for a list. I thought maybe it'd be a flimsy top 5, but when we sat down and thought about this, and we got some engagement from the community too, we were actually able to form a really strong top 10.
Yeah, there are some serious miscarriages of justice throughout the Nancy Drew games, and you're gonna see a lot of these in this game. Some tend to gravitate towards the earlier games, but you will see some surprise picks in here that I don't think you would expect at a glance. So, jumping right into this one, this is our more or less top 10 culprits who are not actually the culprit. Not everyone on this list has committed a crime, but many of them have malicious or criminal intent.
Yeah, I think determining intent was a pretty big thing. A lot of the people act selfishly, but some of them actually just do commit downright crimes. Okay, with that, I am down to move into number 10 on our list. You love him and you hate him. It is the man, the myth, the legend, Tino Balducci, ladies and gentlemen.
And this is Tino Balducci from Game 13, although I suppose you could make an argument for saying he is an antagonist in White Wolf as well.
Now, Tino Balducci, we obviously know his backstory. He is a bit of a fraud. He came clean on that to Nancy, that he didn't actually solve the big case that he was famous for. It was just pure luck that he bumped into them at the drive-thru.
Yeah.
But that's not why he's on this list. He's on the list for pulling the emergency brake on the train in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, which was, at one point, the main driving mystery of the game.
Now, this wouldn't be so glaring of a problem if it weren't for the fact that Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon is about the only Nancy Drew game where there is no crime committed. It's kind of like a treasure hunt game. You're solving an old man's clues. There's no like big dramatic crime until the very end. And so, on board this train, exactly one crime, or at least misconduct, has happened, and that is somebody pulling the emergency brake, which we know can have lethal consequences from the game over sequence where Nancy pulls it and then smashes her head against the wall.
That probably is some sort of crime. It's probably
it's endangerment of other people.
Inciting, like, a panic or something like that.
You're a criminal justice major, you would know. It's a crime to pull a fire alarm, it's a crime to pull an emergency brake.
Yeah. Later on, after some weaseling him, he does come clean about it, but it doesn't...
It's a quid pro quo coming clean, where he basically says, like, look, Nancy, would you do me a solid and not tell everyone that I endangered their lives by pulling the emergency brake? Because Nancy kind of, like, quid pro quos him for information, if I remember right, and doesn't actually get him to face consequences for what he did.
Right, so pretty minor criminal offense. Doesn't get you too far up on the list, but we will move on to some slightly more serious stuff.
On number 9 for our list, I think it's important that we preface that this one isn't necessarily criminal, but it is super deceitful. And that is Abby Sedaris from Game 3, Message in Haunted Mansion. Do you guys know her last name is Sedaris?
Yeah, pay attention for the next Kahoot, ladies and gentlemen.
That could be trivia. But wow.
Yeah, so Abby is a bit of a sleazebag, and what makes it even worse is that, like, her and Rose are like friends, and she's just doing this to Rose, this like big investment that they want halvesies on allegedly, and she's kind of just ruining it.
What happens in specific details is that Abby and Rose buy a bed and breakfast together, and they want to flip it out in San Francisco and make it a nice fancy inn that they can rent out and make a business to people. While there's these accidents going on that are delaying construction and renovations, Abby decides that she's going to begin staging hauntings and ghost sightings around the inn without telling her business partner so that they can drum up publicity and get more people to come to their haunted bed and breakfast.
Dude, it makes me feel really bad for Rose. She's like the true villain.
Yeah.
She's villainized by 2 people in this game.
I also just want to point out that, like, Abby is a complete fake psychic. I think it's kind of funny to point that out. She definitely doesn't even believe what she's doing. She's just pulling everyone's leg when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
She hosts her hokey seance sequence. I remember somebody in the Discord said once, Abby really went on Amazon and Googled seance kit with turban. I really do think it's important to note that Abby deceives everyone in the game, and she's the culprit of one of the mysteries, but no real crime is committed, at least not before Nancy puts a stop to it.
Coming in at number 8 on our list, we have a tag team effort here by Rick Arlen and Lillian Weiss from game number 2, Stay Tuned for Danger.
Both of these people send threats and packages to Rick Arlen with malicious intent. The difference is that Rick Arlen sends one to himself as a way of fabricating and promoting the story that he's in danger. And Lillian actually sends him chocolates that have been tainted with castor oil so that he gets sick and throws up. It's not really an attempt on his life. It's not poisonous, but castor oil is no fun.
Yeah, I think that would fall under poison, like making somebody sick.
But it's not lethal, but still.
Yeah, but it's definitely a total Rick move to just hop on the train of, ooh, look, I'm getting more famous, the more threats I get. Let me just send myself something real quick.
Now, if I'm not mistaken about how this works, the way that you figure out that Rick sent himself a couple of fake threats, I'm 90% sure about this, is that one of the names that the threats come from is a B.T. Kaiser. And it's a very strange spelling. It's a weird name. And later on in the game, when you're going through Dwayne's office and going through his files, you find out that Rick Arlen actually had a name change, and that his real name is Rick Arbatuski. If you rearrange Arbatuski, you get an anagram for B.T. Kaiser, which, for some reason, all the early games had to have anagrams in them for some reason, which is dumb.
And also, Nancy's age is questionable in this game, but he is extremely flirtatious with her.
Yes, that's absolutely true. We do not have confirmation if Nancy is or is not a minor. And
so, just for that alone, he's on the list.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy. Number 7 now. This is an instance that I originally thought could deserve number 1, but we examined intention, and the fact that he apologized kind of moved it back a little bit. And that is Dr. Gilbert Buford from Legend of the Crystal Skull.
So he is the skeleton man that trespasses into the Belay estate and then knocks you out at the beginning of the game.
I want to remind the audience that when you begin Legend of the Crystal Skull, the objective is not to find out if the Crystal Skull was real. It is not to find out if Dr. Belay was murdered. It's to find out who the skeleton man is that just attacked you. Mm-hmm. And Nancy's objective changes later on in the game, but you've eventually learned that it was in fact this nice, old, elderly, off-color doctor who hangs out at the French Quarter. He attacked Nancy, and we just don't press charges, and we forgive him in the endgame letter.
Yeah, it's. I guess he's guilty of assault in a way.
He is. He attacked Nancy.
I didn't think about that, trespassing and assault. But
he used a substance on her. She was knocked out.
He used a substance. The thing is that I kind of see that as a panic type thing. It definitely wasn't premeditated.
Then why was he carrying smoke bombs when he entered the house?
It was. That's actually a good point. That would be a good criminal defense.
He was armed and dangerous.
That's what the prosecution would say. He comes across as a really nice guy. He's very apologetic about it. So that's probably why he's on this list. Where he is on the list, I mean.
Because otherwise...
But also, what about being the leader of a cult? Is this a legal cult, like the Jolly Rogers?
Technically, no. That's also true. I hadn't thought of that.
What are they doing? Exactly.
The Jolly Rogers is a crew that just gets together and throws parties for Mardi Gras. But because they are very strict on who's allowed to join, the city basically said, all right, you guys have to let everyone in, or you can't keep on doing your party meetings.
It's not so much criminal, just shady.
Yeah, mischievous at the least.
But yeah, I think he earns a spot on the list. He
definitely assaulted Nancy.
No hardened criminal, but yeah.
I'll let you take this one, yeah.
Yes, moving into number 6 on our list, we have the Charmstrong, ladies and gentlemen, Brady Armstrong from Final Scene. Now,
this is an interesting one because
so we were thinking about where do we place Brady? And one thing that really differentiates him with someone that may be appearing later on this list, where Brady does deserve to be on this list, is that he is extremely selfish and willing to overlook evidence pointing that Maya is in the building in order to destroy it for personal gain.
It's very interesting to look at because I suppose you could say he's guilty of obstruction of justice.
Yes, that's a good point because he does conceal Maya's notebook.
It's her notebook and her press pass. He finds it, and before he even turns it over, Simone has him do a bunch of photo ops with it and stuff. Brady, the way that he operates is that he puts himself first and the safety of Maya second. And he gets a very big villain monologue at the end of the game where he basically tells Nancy, it doesn't matter if she's in the theater. I've got a wrecking crew to start rallying.
Exactly. I remember when I first got that dialogue, when I first played the game, my jaw dropped. I was like, is he the culprit? Like,
it actually kind of feels like a culprit speech, like you're about to enter an endgame challenge.
It really does. So he's just so selfish, so conceited, worrying about his hairline. He would rather just have, what was the name he was gonna build? Like,
Brady Armstrong's Tinseltown.
Yeah, so he was just gonna create his own little park, probably knowingly kill this girl that's somewhere in the theater.
It's vicious, and what makes it worse is that, to my understanding, Brady goes on to have a successful career after this game. Mm-hmm. He's still relevant 6 games later when Jane Penvelin has a poster of him on her wall, and she thinks he's so cool, and I'm assuming that that's the default. Everyone sees Brady Armstrong as this cool movie star who's popular, and he's a dick.
Even when he was talking to the press in the short conversations we can overhear, doesn't he, like, take the charge? Like, he's been, like, doing everything Nancy's been doing?
Because he's got this persona he needs to build, that he's the hero.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brady himself, I think that he's a bit of a patsy at times, but he definitely does some questionable things.
Well, quite criminal too, withholding evidence.
Definitely,
Like, that's crazy.
Number 5 here. This is a character who has tormented me on every playthrough of this game, because it feels as if it's either open-ended on purpose, or the game is incomplete in this way and completely a dead-end story. And that is Ingrid Corey from the Haunted Carousel. Now,
I think it is difficult to rank her too, but we are just going off of what is heavily implied in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Which is that she is colluding with Lance Huffington in, like, medical fraud.
This is bizarre that she's not the culprit, because this is the kind of game where multiple crimes are occurring, and Nancy only cares about the crime that she solves last. The first crime is that somebody flipped the brake on the roller coaster and a man had neck injuries. The second crime is carousel horses being stolen and potential forgeries being made. But really, the headliner here is that this guy who has claimed that he has had neck injuries, Lance Huffington, is a serial con artist and is in contact with Ingrid Corey, who is the chief designer of all the roller coasters at the park.
And what really makes it concrete is the phone call that we have with Lance.
God. The phone call is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is so incriminating.
What does he say? Like, next time you're talking to me, you're gonna be talking to a multi-millionaire.
She asked me to call you for a status report.
Everything's great. Her plan worked. I'm glad she shared it with me. Life's good.
Huh?
At least it will be when the trial's over and the settlement's in the bank.
Everything went great. Her plan worked. And it's so bizarre because he's saying, like, yes, we made a plan. It's working. Next time you talk to me, I might be a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
And then when you talk to Ingrid about it, Ingrid says, I called him and told him to rub some witch hazel and lavender on his neck to help with the whiplash.
Sure.
That's it? That's all that she did, apparently?
No, there's no shot. She always came across to me as she was withholding something, and I feel like that all but confirms it.
Now, there's another important note to put onto this. Nancy can then press her to ask how she's just been able to afford this giant, crazy car that she bought and the expensive watch that's like $20,000, because you find the receipts in her things, and Ingrid says that she has been helping out another roller coaster engineer with some blueprints. And she says that the reason she's doing it under the table is because it is confidential work and that this is a vicious industry where she could be called conflict of interest and fired if it got out that she did this. But I don't believe that. I still think that she pulled off a con with Lance Huffington. She's definitely doing something. I know that by the end of the game, Joy Trent admits that she pulled the emergency brake, but oh my gosh, Ingrid, I still just don't even believe the evidence of my eyes when I hear that. I think that Ingrid and Lance were pulling some kind of con. Lance definitely was doing something not on the level with Ingrid. And the game is like gaslighting you into thinking it's legit.
The one thing I'm curious about is, like, what cut would she be getting of, like, the false claims health insurance type of thing?
Something enough that she can buy a $10,000 watch.
Was it a private settlement with Captain's Cove? Was that what it was, or something? Or
that's what he was going for, yeah, because he was trying to sue Paula Santos, I believe, the park owner.
That's what I thought too.
But it still doesn't make sense. Tell me what you think is more plausible. Ingrid has this conversation with him over the phone that ends with a suspicious phone call that is so guilty sounding. or that Ingrid did that but is not making money from him and is instead making money by selling blueprints to some other guy that we never heard of before or again. Something fishy's going on, and I don't trust you, Ingrid.
I don't trust her either. I feel like this also wraps like Lance Huffington into like the the real villain, but like it's hard to just choose that.
Lance is a villain because of that conversation with Ingrid. It's whatever.
There's a lot more to unpack there. Okay, we rest our case. Moving on to number 4 on our list,
we got a mastermind.
We have Mr. Henrik Vanderheun. Wait, Mr. Hoon? Mr. Henrik Vanderheun from game number 6.
There is an argument to be made that Henrik Vanderheun could be the most maniacal, diabolical character in all of Nancy Drew.
That is Jamie's belief, and I don't prescribe to this theory, but it is interesting nonetheless. And, I mean, whether or not the theory is true, he is also guilty of some pretty intense stuff. So.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start off with the first thing. The mystery of Secret of the Scarlet Hand, somebody steals the Pakal carving. It was Henrik. Henrik stole the Pakal carving.
And just gets away with it.
Yes, he gets away with it. Now, let's go through what happened, regardless of who the actual endgame culprit of this game is. Henrik is a smuggler, to my understanding. You know what? We're doing a little bit of fact-checking right now, just to make sure I get this right. Henrik was in a smuggling racket to pay off his college tuition.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Is that even revealed in the game?
Yes, it is. He was in a smuggling racket. Henrik had gone on a trip in the 70s with Taylor Sinclair.
Because that's where the smugglers and the ham radio
yes,
comes in, right?
Because he is in contact with smugglers.
Yeah.
Dude, he was a smuggler with Taylor.
What the hell?
Yes, Big Bunny. That's all in his journal. He says outright that, like, Big Bunny and I today were camping out here. We heard the legend of Siwa Pili. They were smuggling. They were smugglers. This is what they did.
This is crazy.
You didn't know this?
Oh my, he is the most evil character. No, talk about your theory that he doesn't actually have amnesia.
Okay, so
because I've heard of this before, and I just think there needs to be a little more evidence to support it.
Okay, let's go ahead and just work through from the beginning. The Nancy Drew wiki page says right here, Henrik Vanderheun once went on a trip in the 70s with Taylor Sinclair, who may or may not be, who is the culprit of this game. Let's just get that spoiler out of the way. And they heard about the legend of the Whisperer, but they're holding out on us here. Henrik was in a smuggling racket to pay off his college tuition. Henrik is a smuggler. Henrik was on a trip with Taylor Sinclair, who is another renowned smuggler. Henrik is in cahoots with the culprit of this game to smuggle shit. But for some reason, he apparently, this is where the theory begins, Henrik apparently has a change of heart when he finds out about a plot that the Pakal carving is going to be stolen. So to, quote, protect it from Taylor Sinclair, he steals the Pakal carving and hides it somewhere else in the museum. Now this is rich. This is the best part. He then falls and gets amnesia. So that he's in the hospital and just he can't claim to any of these. He can't speak to any of these claims that I'm involved in a smuggling racket. You're asking the wrong amnesiac. This. Okay. I totally believe he is faking his amnesia.
So wait, at the end of the game when we lock Taylor in the tomb, doesn't he appear in the garden?
Yes, he does. He's made a full recovery.
How did he do that?
Because he's made a full... It's a miracle. It's because Nancy put 3 pictures on his memory board and then the whole Pythagorean theorem came back to him. It's just... I will die on the hill that Henrik Vanderheun is faking his amnesia to try to avoid consequences for the smuggling racket that he is damn well a part of. He is
now,
crazy.
This is interesting, because I did just consider the very ending of the game where he comes back.
Nurse Bluefoot says, we need to help make sure that Henrik makes a recovery. Henrik's brain has been knocked around like a peanut in its shell. But he's totally hiding this fact. Because, I mean, I wish we had the actual screenshot on here. But yes, this is a real thing that happened. In the 1970s, Henrik went for a expedition with Taylor Sinclair, Big Bunny at the time he was known as.
I wonder if there's anything on Taylor Sinclair's page that talks about... What?
Both Taylor and Henrik were in the black market and had smuggling contacts in South America.
Oh my god! Why is he not the culprit?
Exactly! That's what I was trying to tell you!
What? We didn't know this when we started
recording. The
this.
only reason Henrik is not the culprit is because he has, quote, amnesia.
Wait, what? This is crazy.
Okay. Before we move on, let's just address the elephant in the room. There was a little more skeletons in Henrik Vanderheun's closet than we were prepared to admit we knew about when we started this list.
I am thoroughly shocked.
Henrik is a handy number 4, but maybe he belongs a little bit higher. Comment down below if you think that Henrik Vanderheun actually gets amnesia that lasts for 3 days while the investigation is going on, or if he faked it to avoid the smuggling charges.
Well, I'll be damned.
People, Occam's razor.
Moving on now, guys, to number 3 on the list, we have Simone Mueller, previously mentioned earlier in this video. Simone is 100% deserving of a spot this high up on the list.
Oh my
She
gosh.
is insane. She is impossible to work with, but the worst thing of all is how she fabricates evidence and does absolutely nothing. She actually sets the case back to save Maya's life, and she does it all for personal gain and for the press. It is like actually disturbing.
Real quick, just to make sure we don't miss anything else, I'm pulling up the Simone Mueller wiki because I want to know if there's any other crazy allegations we aren't aware of. What we know about Simone Mueller is that she reframes all of the wanted posters to advertise Brady Armstrong instead of the missing girl. She keeps on trying to use this as an opportunity to prop up Brady's career in that way.
She completely fabricated the wreath.
Yes, she sent a funeral wreath to drum up publicity like it was a freaking soap opera. Simone is a viper.
But also snooping through her notes, we find that there's the photo op, the private photo op with Brady and the ID and everything.
There are several times where Simone openly, or I mean, like behind closed doors, obstructs justice because she finds evidence like Maya's press pass, and instead of taking it right to the police, she goes and finds her star Brady so that he can get a photo op with the evidence that he didn't find.
And especially in a case where time is of the essence, too.
The nicest thing I can say about Simone Mueller is that she doesn't, like, lie to you about how much of an ass she is. She is very in your face about, like, this calls priority, try me later.
Yeah, I think your phone's about to ring. Classic
Ciao.
Nancy quote. What separates her a little bit more from Brady is her just blatant, like, near criminal intent the entire game.
Malice the whole way through the game.
Yeah, it's just kind of insane.
Also, Simone just, like, sends a bunch of fake fan mail back to Brady's fans and pretending that she's Brady. They're probably all copy-pasted. As Brady says, if you ever get any mail that says love Brady, it's just a big electronic smooch from Simone. Simone Mueller is just a love-to-hate her kind of character, because she is just absolutely antagonistic from start to finish.
She's just so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's hard to say.
She brings out the sass in Nancy.
She literally does.
Moving on now to number 2 on our list. This is a pick that I think a lot of people might overlook, but oh my god, is it so in need of being talked about.
Yeah, we researched this person and started to realize the severity of what they had done.
Yeah, no wonder that he was murdered. We have Jake Rogers from Secrets Can Kill, both the original and the remastered.
Yeah, so many of you probably loosely remember that Jake had blackmailed every single suspect in the game.
That was kind of the gimmick, is that Jake Rogers dies and nobody cares at all because they all hated him. Mm-hmm. It's because Jake Rogers was a
horrible person,
manipulative bastard, and he basically got a taste for blackmailing people. It began when he learned that, I believe, Hal Tanaka cheated on an essay, so he started blackmailing Hal to do his homework, or else Hal would lose his scholarship. That worked, so he wanted some more. He found out that the star football player, Hector Hulk Sanchez, was taking steroids, so he blackmailed him to be his personal bodyguard. It gets really out of control when he finds out that Connie Watson was the secret masked judo star in the all-boys competition, so she illegally entered and stole the competition. Well, it's actually kind of based that Connie was able to do that and beat all the other male judo stars. Jake then blackmails her to go out on a date with him.
Yeah, I did not know about that part. I literally don't even remember that being touched on.
That is freaky.
That is really...
That is so awkward.
Yeah, that's like incel level.
Yeah, he's like the Riddler at this point.
Oh, you're also forgetting with Daryl Gray. He blackmailed to get involved with Mitch Dillon.
Yeah, this is where it all fell apart. The story changes depending on the original Secrets and Kill or the remastered, but he blackmails Daryl Gray, who he finds out is a drug dealer, so that he can, in Secrets Can Kill original, get in touch with the actual drug distributor and make money with him, to which Mitch Dillon promptly murders Jake. Mm-hmm. So he's technically the culprit of this game.
I like how it says his occupation is blackmailer, formally.
Formerly, and student too. And then in the remaster, actually, I believe that he is blackmailing Daryl Gray's for secret information that he's stealing from his father, who's like a arms manufacturer or something. He's a senator. So he's selling like political secrets, and then Detective Beach kills him for that.
So Jake's on the list for treating everyone absolutely horribly.
If Jake was alive, the resolution to this game would be Nancy killing him. Like, there's never been like a more vicious character in the Nancy Drew games.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to just have a conversation with the man.
Also, he's completely omniscient because he left behind a bunch of anagrams and riddles all over the school. So we're safe now that he's dead, because no telling what his power level was if he just knew all these things. Jake Rogers, people don't really think about him as a character very often since he's dead the whole time. But oh my gosh, that dude was villainous.
Seriously, I think he's very deserving to be on the list. Because if he was like a suspect, it would just be like he's the culprit. Like everything he did, that's insane.
For a brief honorable mention, there are a couple of people that we wanted to throw into this list. Really, I think the biggest one is going to be Tony Scolari. Tony Scolari is just a complete diva the entire way through Alibi and Ashes, but she never outright commits crimes. She's just on some real estate frauds and scrabbles like that, so there's nothing you can really pin on her. Rachel from Waverly Academy is technically one of the culprits, but she's more of a victim. And finally, Malachi Craven, who I suppose did trash Quigley Kim's camp, even though he was not the culprit of that game, and that is one of the mysteries you're trying to solve. Number one, though, not quite as severe as some other crimes on the list, but it is the most BS instance of this needs to be the culprit, I think, of the entire series. And that is none other than game number 12, Richard Topham.
Yeah, Richard Topham, like, literally committed the crime and is the culprit.
And nothing happened.
And nothing happened at all. Like, at the last second, it's like, wait a minute, there's an imposter among us. He didn't get voted off. And then...
Stop it!
And then Shane.
What happened in this game is absolutely mind-bendingly stupid in the end game, with all due respect. The occurrence in Secret of the Old Clock is that Emily's mother dies and her jewelry is stolen. And, like, this is a big deal. What happened to the stolen jewelry? But you very quickly learn that, the family is in dire straits, and part of the reason Emily's mother died is because they were in the Great Depression and had no money and were under a lot of stress because their good friend, Josiah Crowley died and didn't leave them anything, even though he had led them to believe that he would leave them a shit ton of money in their will. What ended up happening, and it's a brazen fact, is that Richard Topham forged a will because the real one was never found. That basically just said, "Yeah, man, I leave literally everything to Richard Topham. Trust me, bro. Source, I made it up." And so Richard Topham just starts living in his house, has all of his things, access to his bank account, and is completely loaded. He is just rolling in the money, and his literal neighbors to the Crandall family, who one of them dies in this period of time. And the other one is living in extreme poverty. She's gonna have to sell the inn. She's getting repossessed by her really legal guardian. It's a horrible situation, and Richard Topham does nothing but pretend to pick up spoons with his mind all day.
Yeah, he also is a scam artist.
He is a scam artist. He's like Job from Arrested Development, and he teaches people magic tricks, and they don't work.
But there's no resolution to what happens either once we find the will, right?
Maybe in the endgame letter they briefly say, what's so aggravating...
Wait, I don't remember. We need to pull up the endgame letter then.
We will. What's so aggravating about this game is that the Secret of the Old Clock book, he is the culprit, if I remember correctly, because the crime is who forged Old Man Crowley's will. And that's what the crime is in this game, too. Nancy opens the lockbox at the end of the game and says, like, look, I found Josiah Crowley's will. That means that Richard Topham... Wait a second. What is this picture of Jane's guardian, of Emily's guardian, with a different woman than the one I've seen? And Nancy just completely forgets about one crime to pursue the other, and it feels so cheap.
It does. Well, I just need to know real quick if there was any resolution to what happens to him.
I actually think this is one that we didn't get on the channel, so we're going to have to watch somebody else do it. Argle Thump. Okay. He left so much money to Emily that she'll be able to hire all the people she needs to keep the inn going, but she won't be able to hire a new mom. This is what Topham took away from her. Now, what do we have to say about Topham? Josiah left him nothing.
Sorceries.
Refuses to admit he forged the will, and that he's going to contest the will that Nancy found. So there's no criminal charges. He just says, no, this is the real will. I swear this is the real will. What a joke.
Oh my god.
This is like the ultimate bait and switch culprit, where he literally is the culprit, but the game is like, but look over here. Look at these keys I'm jangling.
That makes it so funny.
It's pretty rough.
Man. Well, I feel like just out of principle that like default has to make him number 1 on this list.
Yeah. But we are still very, very skeptical of Mr. Vanderheun after these revelations.
Yeah, the revelations were made mid-video recording, mind you. So I would say Mr. Vanderheun has an appointment with the number 2 spot on this list.
But that's just a theory. A Nancy Drew theory. Okay, we'll tone it down.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on this very convoluted top 10. We had a lot of fun and learned a lot while recording this video.
Yeah, this is definitely a sillier entry in our top 10 list. Before we sign off, I think it is really important that we bring up that this has been maybe the most active week in the Nancy Drew community in about the last 4 years now.
Yes, because game number 34 has been confirmed by Her Interactive. Thank God.
We're so excited and on the edge of our seats, and it sounds like there will be more news coming on it before the end of April. We may even get a teaser. We may even get a title if we haven't already figured it out. I did want to say real quick that I know that I am extremely busy in April for post-students. I'm just doing nothing but editing movies for school, and Julian has his finals, of course. So we have not been able to really keep our finger to the pulse and solve the riddles and stuff that Her Interactive has released. But our Discord has done an excellent job for it, and if you are looking to solve any upcoming future mysteries, the Vote for Holt Discord is a great place to go to collaborate with other people who are trying to figure out what's going on with the Her Interactive riddles and ciphers. Shout out to Hugh Miller. I watched him in stream as he actually solved the riddle and was the first to decipher the ND34 confirmation earlier this week, or last week now when I upload this. So proud of you, Hugh. You really are like the current main character of the Nancy Drew of the Nancy Drew fandom. So that's pretty lit. And as more is revealed about this game, Julian and I will probably make more videos commentating on it.
Definitely. You can expect videos whenever there's like a title dropped for it. We can have a speculation video. Whenever there's a trailer for the game. We're very excited to be YouTubers at a time where a new Nancy Drew game is coming out.
It's gonna be so crazy. We need to like...
Granted, it will probably be like 80 years old when it comes out.
Yeah, but who knows? It could actually be before we're geriatric at this point. So,
we can only hope.
Yeah. Otherwise, thanks so much for tagging along, everybody. It's an exciting time to be a Nancy Drew fan, and I hope you enjoyed this goofy little top 10.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and vote for Holt.
Don't forget to vote for Holt.